Welcome to Nesian Recapped. Today, I will talk about an action drama history movie from 2022 titled Medieval, based on the true story of Jan Zizka, a folk hero in the Czech Republic. Without further ado, let's get started. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. After the death of the Bohemian king and Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV, everything changed for the worse. The darkness started to spread, and much of Europe sank into chaos. The continent was engulfed in war, plague and famine. The Catholic Church also fell into such disarray that two popes were elected, one in Rome and the other under the protection of the King of France. The only way to reinstate the rule of law is to crown a new emperor. However, the firstborn child of Charles IV, Bohemian King Wenceslas, who was chosen for that, is drowning in debt. Only the Pope can crown him in Rome. Those who backed the second Pope in France are now doing all in their power to prevent his coronation. On his way to meet Bohemian King Wenceslas in Prague, Lord Boresh gets attacked by a group of assassins. Before the murderers can cause any harm, they are brutally killed by a mercenary group hired by Lord Boresh and led by a stoic and unwavering leader, Jan Zizka. Holding a knife to an assassin's neck, Zizka manages to learn who was behind the attack. It is Lord Rosenberg, an heir to a prominent Bohemian noble family and the one who King Wenceslas owes a hefty amount of wealth. In Prague, we see Wenceslas's half-brother, the King of Hungary, King Sigismund, arguing with Lord Rosenberg and demanding more money to finance Wenceslas's trip to Rome. Sigismund's only concern is the incoming winter, which will make their journey to Rome impossible, causing a delay in the process of coronation. On the other hand, Lord Rosenberg doesn't want to fund the trip because he is afraid if King Wenceslas is killed on this journey, he will lose not only the money the brothers asked now but also the substantial sum the king already owes. This explains why he arranged Lord Boresh's assassination. Meanwhile, Lord Boresh enters the hall with the safe passage for King Wenceslas to his coronation as an emperor in Rome. Seeing Boresh alive, Lord Rosenberg gets even more enraged because he promised his support if Lord Boresh brought the safe passage to them. Outside the throne hall, we are introduced to Lady Katherine, who Zizka's men first mistook for a female servant. In fact, she is the King of France's niece, Lord Rosenberg's fiancée, and a peace-loving person who has a deep devotion and fascination for a Czech theologian, Jan Hus. Jan Hus prefers the teachings of Jesus over those of the Pope, condemns many dark aspects of the Catholic Church in Bohemia, and is also against all of these kings and lords going to war. Influenced by Jan Hus's philosophy, Katherine thinks that Wenceslas's rule will not benefit anyone in the kingdom. As Zizka and his men roam around on the streets of Prague, they witness citizens getting tortured by King Sigismund's right hand, Torek. Because the king lacks funds to pay the soldiers, he is forcing his own people to participate in the war. Whoever refuses to disobey the king's orders, they are either brutally killed or tortured until they agree. When Lord Rosenberg blatantly declines to lend money, Lord Boresh devises a plan to kidnap Lady Katherine, forcing Rosenberg to keep his word. At first, Zizka refuses to abduct a woman, but soon Lord Boresh manages to persuade him to offer his services for the greater good. Zizka's men are over the moon for getting a highly paid mission, but Zizka, on the contrary, doesn't feel satisfied. Before carrying out the operation, Zizka visits his brother Yaroslav, whom he hasn't seen in more than a decade. In a short time, Zizka develops a bond with Yaroslav's son, who is thrilled to see his uncle for the first time. Although the brothers had some tension in the past, Zizka still helps Yaroslav financially. The following day, while Katherine is on her way to attend Jan Hus's address in the church, we see Zizka's men on their way to pull off her abduction. Lord Rosenberg, who doesn't want people to think he is an admirer of Jan Hus, returns to his castle after dropping Katherine off at the church. During the speech, one of Zizka's men, Mick, dupes Katherine into leaving the gathering and joining Zizka behind closed doors. Hearing Katherine's screams, Captain Martin, Rosenberg's right hand, soon realizes something is wrong, but before he can do anything, Zizek leaves the city with Katherine in a cart full of dead bodies. In the next few days, Zizek will take her to the hunting castle, where King Wenceslas will be waiting for him. When Lord Rosenberg learns about the situation, he visits King Sigismund, thinking of him as the one behind Katherine's abduction. While the two engage in a conversation, we learn that Sigismund aims to get his brother's throne and is ready to rescue Katherine in exchange for Rosenberg's full support in all union activities. Sigismund makes him realize how he can win over Katherine's father by eliminating Wenceslas's chances of becoming an emperor. Realizing that he cannot find Katherine without Sigismund's help, Rosenberg finally decides to make an agreement with him. In an effort to rescue Katherine, Sigismund sends Torek to abduct Zizka's brother while destroying everything around his house. When Zizka witnesses the smoke coming from Jaroslav's home, He sprints towards the location only to find his nephew hung on a sharp pole. The boy's arms are cut off, and he is so brutally tortured that Zizka has to free him from all the suffering and pain. One of the nearby rebels, Barbara, who knew the family well, informs Zizka about the message Sigismund sent him. If Catherine is not returned, he will hang Joroslav to death. Zizka's men are not ready to trade Catherine for Joroslav because they don't want to lose money. Even if they return Catherine, they think Sigismund will never let them live. Instead of losing hope, Zizka gathers the rebels and persuades them to fight against Sigismund's people. Catherine, who is tormented to see all the bloodshed, knows that if Sigismund captures her, he will force Rosenborg to do his bidding for him. To avoid getting her fiancé exploited by the King of Hungary, Catherine tries to escape but gets caught by Zizka in the forest. The next day, when the trading is over, Zizka and his men block Torek's army's path before dousing the area in smoke. Using smart attacking strategies, Zizka manages to attract Rosenborg's army, allowing Catherine to escape with Zizka's men. However, while she is on her way to the cave, Captain Martin manages to see her. Taking advantage of the smoke, Zizka and the rebels escape the area after killing almost half of Torek's army. Unfortunately, Martin guides the men to the cave where Catherine is kept. During the combat, Zizka loses an eye while his closest ally gets stabbed to death by Torek. Although Zizka and Catherine manage to escape using the cave sump, Zizka goes unconscious due to pain and excessive blood loss. Despite knowing the fact that Zizka has kidnapped her, Catherine rescues him from drowning and even treats his wounds. Following Zizka's instructions, the rebels decide to regroup with Zizka at the meeting point near the Hinting Castle. On the other hand, Rosenborg is enraged at Sigismund due to the failed rescue mission and decides to back out from the agreement. However, when Sigismund threatens to kill Catherine, Rosenborg has no option but to follow along. One of Zizka's men, Konrad, becomes a traitor and informs Torek everything about the mission. Meanwhile, Zizka and Catherine take refuge in a shelter that was recently attacked by Torek and his men. To help Zizka kill his brutal self, Catherine makes him realize the importance of love in a person's life. The following morning, they witness Rosenborg outside the shelter. Catherine has the chance to go, but after learning that Rosenborg is behind an assassination attempt on Lord Boresh, she cannot decide what to do. On the other hand, King Wenceslas is living a dull life in his hunting castle. Even after learning that his brother has double-crossed him, Wenceslas does nothing and keeps relying on Lord Boresh's plans. Captain Martin has caught David, but before he can sentence him to death for helping Zizka, Catherine interrupts them against Zizka's instructions. Seeing Catherine fighting for the innocent people, Zizka steps up and rescues David. When Captain Martin arrests Zizka, Catherine stabs him, resulting in his demise. Before Torek and his army arrive, Zizka and Catherine manage to escape. To remove blood stains from her clothes, Catherine washes up in a lake while crying and thinking about how she killed Martin. The rebels gather at the meeting point and are now motivated more than ever to fight against the enemies. Instead of taking Catherine to the hunting castle, Zizka decides to take her to her father because he thinks he will do more damage to Rosenborg than they ever could. Rosenborg has no option but to return to King Wenceslas for help to get Catherine back. He has decided not only to support the king's trip to Rome but also to lower the taxes for his people. While taking a break in the forest, Zizka begins to unfold how the king's knights hung his sister, Anna, for killing a hawk. He tried to retaliate, but his father made him understand that what had happened was right because the king's law is God's law. Now, he understands that Catherine is right and that the kings may be chosen by God, but still, they make the mistakes of men. He can't let idle and oppressive emperors torture his people as if they own them. Before Catherine and Zizka share a kiss, Zizka's men attack them and knock their leader unconscious. After tethering Zizka to a tree, the men head to the hunting palace to bring Catherine to King Wenceslas. Meanwhile, King Sigismund invades the hunting palace with Rosenborg, revealing that the latter agreed to make an agreement with King Wenceslas only to get access to his castle. When King Wenceslas learns about his brother planning to get the emperor's crown, he can do nothing but repent of his fate. After Zizka is rescued by David, he visits Lord Boresh, who has somehow managed to escape Sigismund's attack on the castle. Before dying, Boresh instructs Zizka to stop Sigismund from getting Catherine. While Zizka's men enter the castle with Catherine, we see all the rebels breaking into the castle from behind. After learning that Sigismund has occupied the palace, Zizka's warriors have no choice but to help their leader fight against the enemy. During the fight, when Torek overpowers Zizka, Catherine jumps off the cliff, tired of all the bloodshed. As Torik's attention is diverted, Zizka throws him into the river and tortures him to death. Although Katherine gets rescued by Zizka, she loses her life to various body injuries, leaving Zizka stunned. Katherine's body is taken to the rebels' territory, where she receives the respect she deserves. After the death of his brother, Sigismund became the king of Bohemia, but the people revolted against him. When Sigismund orchestrated Europe's crusades against them, Jan Zizka led the vastly outnumbered peasants. He fought against the wrongdoers until his death but was never defeated. This is all we have for you today. Hope you like it. Subscribe for more content like this, and hit the like button to help us out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time, take care.